Yo, what's up? My name is KushiKush, and I'm going to be talking about card effects that you might be seeing commonly in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm just going to be going a brief overview of what you might see in your coming games. So starting off, I wanted to talk about monsters that add things. This can be in the form of a trap that says like, oh, you can add a card from your deck to your hand, a spell that says you can add a card from your deck to your hand, or even a monster. For example, Green Gadget. When it is normal or special, you can add a red gadget from your deck to your hand. These card effects are very powerful because they get you a free card from your deck. In this case, Green Gadget gets you Red Gadget, but there are also better cards out there. Like for example, there is a newer deck out in Yu-Gi-Oh! Called Punk. And this is just you pay 600 life points, you add a Punk monster from your deck to your hand. The thing is, you can add a monster that you can pay 600 life points, add a Punk trap. There's also one that you can add a Punk spell. So they kind of like each add things and it gets you a bunch of advantage. Also, I wanted to mention old school cards that might have been good a long time ago but aren't good in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! For example, you have powerful card effects like Mystical Space Typhoon. When it was first released, I think in like the third set of Yu-Gi-Oh! Ever in 2003 or whatever, it was one of the most powerful cards in the entire game. So powerful, in fact, you can only run one copy. The equivalent to modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Mystical Space Typhoon would be RP's Feather Duster, which you can only run one copy of. Destroy all spell and traps your opponent controls. Mystical Space Typhoon only destroys one. So yeah, there are powerful versions of cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! It's called power creep. Essentially, it's when a card is like created that is better than a previous version. People don't use the previous version anymore just because the newer version's a lot better. So for example, we have a card like Raigeki. This is one of the first cards ever printed in the entire game, and it's still one of the most powerful spell cards in the entire game. Destroy all monsters your opponent controls. Weaker versions of Raigeki have been printed because the card was so good it was banned. For example, we have a card like Lightning Vortex. Discard a card, destroy all face-up monsters your opponent controls. I don't like Raigeki, except you have to discard a card and it only destroys face-up. So for example, if you're playing against somebody who, I don't know, sets a monster face down, because there are flip effect monsters. When you set a monster face down and you flip it face up, you draw a card. Lightning Vortex won't destroy them. Raigeki will. There's like, you have to be careful with like the wording. So if you do something and you go like, hey, why is it not working? It's probably because the card doesn't do exactly what you're hoping it would do. Another example of a weaker version, like a single target version of a monster removal, is Smashing Ground. This card was very popular when it was released back in like what, 2006-7. Nowadays nobody even touches this card, nobody plays it, just because it's too slow, it's too weak. Destroy one face-up monster your opponent controls, highest defense. I mean, back then that was cool when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was slower and it was like summon a monster, you attack, you end your turn, your opponent summons a monster, they attack, they end their turn. Nowadays in Yu-Gi-Oh! The games usually end in 2 or 3 turns, so you don't really want to run cards like these just because they're too slow. Raigeki is a little bit better because it just destroys all monsters your opponent controls. Doesn't matter if they're face up, face down, just destroys them. But even then, if you look at the top decks, like for Dark Magician, Blue Eyes, or whatever top deck is at Yu-Gi-Oh! In the time of you watching this, people don't usually run Raigeki in their main deck. And you might be wondering why, it's such a good card, right? Well, the reason is because we have this thing in Yu-Gi-Oh! Called the extra deck, and the extra deck is very powerful. So for example, Mystical Space Typhoon can destroy a spell trap on the field. There's a card in your extra deck that you can run called Tornado Dragon. This card is, you can destroy a spell trap on the field. The only difference between Mystical Space Typhoon and Tornado Dragon is Tornado Dragon is a monster, so it can attack and defend and whatever. Also, you can make it as long as you have 2 level 4s. So you don't need to hope to draw Mystical Space Typhoon. As long as you have 2 level 4s, you can make Tornado Dragon. But Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of power crept this too, because you know there's another card. It's called Nightmare Phoenix. This card can be made with 2 monsters with different names. They don't have to be the same level, they don't have to be level 4. As long as they have different names, you can make this. You do have to discard a card, but you can destroy spell or trap your opponent controls. Meaning that Nightmare Phoenix, although you do discard to destroy spell or trap, which isn't like the best effect on its own, it's so easy to be made that you can run it in virtually almost any deck, which gives you access to MST like whenever you want. That's what modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Is. You want to have options, so if your opponent does something and you're not sure exactly what to do, you have a bunch of options at your disposal so you can choose the right one to do. But Nightmare Phoenix isn't the best monster in your extra deck that's removable, I think that goes to Nightmare Unicorn. Because Nightmare Unicorn has the effect where you can discard a card and you can target a card on the field, spell or trap, or monster just as a card, so it's anything, shuffled into the deck. The reason shuffling into the deck is good rather than just destroying it, but sometimes cards say, oh, can't be destroyed by card effect. Nightmare Unicorn kind of gets over that effect because technically it's not destroying the card by card effect, it's shuffling it back. So it kind of gets over that. Yu-Gi-Oh has a little bit of ruling and wordings like that you do have to pay attention to. So Giant Rat, this is an old school card. You might have seen if you played Yu-Gi-Oh when you're like younger or whatever. When it's destroyed by battle, you can special summon a blah 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 from your deck. There's different types. There's an Angel, a special summons a Light. Giant Rat special summons an Earth. These cards initially when they were released were good. They were really good because like the effect is so powerful. You get a free monster from your deck when it dies. Modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, nobody plays these because even though that effect is good, it's just not good enough. So for example, I'll show you a card that's like a boosted up Giant Rat. This is called Cosmo Forerunner. It's from like a Star Wars Yu-Gi-Oh crossover thing. I don't know, it's weird. But essentially this card has the effect where it can't be targeted by an opponent's card effect. That's an okay effect. It kind of makes it a little trickier to get rid of. Also, during your standby phase, you just gain 1,000 life points as long as you control this monster. Good effect right there. It's like just a bonus. And then it has the effect where when it's destroyed by battle or by card effect. So they added by card effect as well. So like even if your opponent doesn't destroy by battle, you still get its effect. You can just special summon a Cosmo from your deck. It's like a really overpowered version of Giant Rat. And that's essentially what Yu-Gi-Oh is in modern day. You have a bunch of powerful effects all stacked together in one card that just do so much. If you do play a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh, you'll start to see card effects like when it's sent to the graveyard, you can do something. For example, Scar of the Vendread. You might not see this card in particular, but the effect where if it's sent to the graveyard, you can add or you can do something, that is a very, very common effect in Yu-Gi-Oh. A lot of card effects have that. So if you wanted to look up more card effects that are when sent to the graveyard, you can do this for anything, like even an add, you can just do sent to the, you'll see all these effects like when it's sent from the hand to the graveyard, or when it's sent to the graveyard by card effect. Yu-Gi-Oh has a lot of these effects. They're very popular. They do a wide variety of effects. So you're going to be seeing this commonly. You're also going to be seeing card effects commonly that's like, oh, targeted a card your opponent controls, destroy it. One of the best monsters in the entire game is Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer. This card is good because it's quick effect, which means you can do it during your turn or your opponent's turn. Destroy one card you control, destroy one card your opponent controls. The catch is it doesn't target. So a card like Cosmo Forerunner, which says cannot be targeted by opponent's card effects. This card, DPE, Destiny Hero Phoenix Enforcer, doesn't care. It's just gonna destroy it anyways, because this card doesn't say target anywhere, it just says destroy them. Weird loopholes in Yu-Gi-Oh! These are common. That's why this card is really, really powerful. Also, it's just destruction whenever you want. And I wanted to talk about OG cards because if you're watching this, you might be familiar with a card called Mirror Force. The reason Mirror Force is good is because this one card can get rid of multiple cards your opponent controls. That means that you're getting rid of a lot of card advantage your opponent has for the price of only one. Now, there are weaker versions of Mirror Force. Should you run them? Probably not, such as Sakuretsu Armor. Yeah, it was used back then when it was released because it was powerful back then, but in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, it's just not enough effects, it's not good enough. When your opponent declares an attack, destroy the attacker monster. Why would you run Sakuretsu Armor, which can only destroy one monster, mind you, when there's Mirror Force, which can destroy multiple? Wouldn't you want the chance of destroying multiple monsters? And even then, Mirror Force isn't the best card because there are multiple Mirror Forces now in the game. There's Storming Mirror Force, there's Blazing Mirror Force, Quaking Mirror Force, Drowning. There's a wide variety of cards, but essentially they all do the same exact thing. When your opponent declares an attack, do something. And finally, I just want to talk about hand traps because although these are fairly new, they are widely used by a lot of players in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards such as Maxi, Ash Blossom, Nibiru, and Infinite Impermanence. They have an effect when they're in your hand, you can do something. Ash Blossom, for example, when your opponent does something that involves adding a card from your deck, you can negate that activation. And normally this wouldn't be good, but because so many cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! Either add something from your deck to your hand, when it's summoned you can add something, when it's sent to the graveyard you can add something, Ash Blossom becomes a very, very, very powerful card because your chances of actually negating something are extremely high. So a lot of people run cards like these. Another example is a card like Maxi. During either player's turn, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. You draw a card each time your opponent special summons. Now it doesn't really destroy your opponent's monsters. It doesn't like make your opponent not get an ad. It just simply gives you a card every time they special summon. That card is powerful because you keep drawing cards from your deck and you're getting more hand advantage. You have more opportunities when it's your turn to stop your opponent, or if you play Maxi and you play modern day Yu-Gi-Oh, you're gonna be running other hand traps. So you have more opportunities to draw other hand traps to stop your opponent. For example, one of the most popular ones right now, I think, besides Ash Blossom Maxi, Nibiru. If your opponent summons 5 or more monsters in one turn, which seems kind of bizarre, right? Like, how are they going to summon 5 or more monsters? It's normal. It's a normal thing in modern day Yu-Gi-Oh! You just get rid of everything on the board, you get a big rock, and they get a token. It stops your opponent from like furthering their plays. Another example would be Infinite Impermanence. As long as you control no monsters, you can activate this card in your hand and negates a monster effect. Not the most powerful thing, but it is still really, really powerful. Just because you can do it during your opponent's turn, even when you haven't even played a single card at all in the entire duel, you can still play this card from your hand if your opponent like does something and you want to stop it. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. I hope you liked it. Just general card effects you might see in Yu-Gi-Oh! And besides that, I hope you have a great day or night. Feel free to let me know anything you want to see in the comments, and that's going to be it from me. Maybe I'll catch you later. Peace.